What up, guys? Your boy Rami coming back with a new video. Pretty cool. All right, today we're gonna do some photoshopping. What? Whoa, cool, awesome. Yeah. Specifically, let's talk about some 3D photos. So, obviously, a photo is two-dimensional, right? There's no you can't reach in and interact with it, right? It's two-dimensional. So how could we possibly make a 3D photo? Well, look, here's when the Anaglyph glasses come in. All right, we got red and we got cyan. So first let's talk about how we perceive three dimensions. So how it works is we have two lenses, our eyes, which each capture different images, and because they're from two different perspectives, very slightly, but they still are, they capture two different images, and it strings it together in our brain to create like a different depths depending on where an object is relative to our two eyes. A little bit complex, but pretty simple. That was contradictory. What the heck? Yeah. So how we can create a 3D effect in a two-dimensional image is we take the image and we separate it into red and cyan, and we use these kind of glasses which take in the red from one lens, the cyan from the other lens, so it creates two different images from a single image. By separating the colors, presents it to our eyes, which creates a depth. Pretty cool. So how we're going to accomplish this is we're going to use Photoshop, and we're going to separate the red from the cyan in an image. Now this process is actually really easy. So I have an image of a fist here because, you know, I think it would be pretty cool. You know, you have a fist popping out, like, whoa, you know, pretty cool. So how we're going to do this is I'm going to duplicate the layer, which you do by right-clicking, duplicate, and we have two different layers now. So I'm going to create one of them to be a red layer and the other one to be a cyan layer. What I mean by this is, as you can, if you didn't already know, the images are comprised of three different channels. You have the red, green, and blue channel, and obviously when you combine all of them, you get white, which is like the background. So we can change this in Photoshop by double-clicking on the layer, and you can see the channels right here, red, green, and blue. And to create a red, you obviously deselect green and blue. So now you have a red, you can see it right here, red layer. So for instance, if I were to deselect it, you can see only the red comes through the image. Now for this layer, we only want the cyan. So cyan is green and blue, so we're going to deselect the red. You have cyan. Pretty cool. So now you have only the cyan coming through. When you put them together, obviously they mix to create the white. Now how we make a 3D effect is now we separate the two. So I'm going to get the move tool. I'm going to select one of the layers, and I'm going to shift it using the arrow keys or with your mouse, but to keep it horizontal I'm using the arrow keys. And I'm just going to shift it. Now as you can see, immediately the two images kind of blur together, separated, and now you have a little like a double vision, which is how these work. So if you have 3D glasses, you can put them on and be like, oh cool, now there's like a little bit of a little movement within the image. Pretty cool. Now to be honest, this is not exactly the best way to do it because now you've created movement, but the same kind of movement between two objects that have different depths. So we have the fist, which is further ahead of the background, and obviously they move differently depending on your perspective because one is farther back than the other. So how we can fix this is by separating the fist from the background and changing the distances of the red and cyan images accordingly. So I have in a different Photoshop file here, as you can see through my layers, I have a fist separated from the background, and the background is where I change the distance of the red and cyan. So as you can see, the fist there's no double image, it's still, but the background you have the double image with the red and cyan separated. So this makes it so that the fist stays still, and if you change perspective, so this is the fist, and this is the perspective. If you change the perspective, the fist will stay the same, but the background shifts. So if you have your 3D glasses, you can put them on, and if you tilt, or like you shift your perspective, the background will shift accordingly, which is pretty interesting. So you would take the original image, you would separate the fist, so select the fist, get your little layer mask, whatever, and then create a layer that's dedicated just to the fist. Then you have the then you have the fist separated from the background, so now you just have the background. And you duplicate the background layer. You have one of them be cyan, one of them be red. Then you separate them like in the previous example. So with this, you get a more accurate representation of the different depths within the 3D image, which is way more interesting and way more mind-boggling because it looks like something's actually popping out at you, which is pretty awesome. If you remember back in the day, like when you went to the theater to see a 3D movie, and you would get these, that's how they would accomplish it. They would have, in the filmmaking process, they would have two cameras, one with the red filter, one with the cyan filter, and it would take the movie in two perspectives, stitch them together in post, and present it. Pretty cool. So this is one way to do it, which is I find the better way because it looks more real. However, there's more work involved because you're separating the different depths within the image. So obviously, like for instance, if you have like 100 objects within an image, there's no way you're going to be able to separate every single one of them individually. Maybe you can separate, like group them up, whatever. But ultimately, if you have that many and you don't want to do that much work, you can just do it like this, which still works, but not as well. But it's easier. So, pick and choose your options. Another way you can do this, which I have not done, is you can take two images, but keep the object in the same, take a picture in one position, shift your camera very slightly, take another picture, and then stitch them together in Photoshop. It's basically the same thing as doing this, except you're not doing anything in post other than separating it. You're doing all of that movement within the actual pictures. So if you did that, it would be way easier. So that's it. Pretty cool, pretty simple. If you need more answers or you have more questions, just look it up. There's billions of people on the internet. Someone else is bound to know. Look up Google Images, 3D images, find examples, get some inspiration, do whatever you want. Pretty cool stuff. Yeah, that's basically it. Photoshop. Pretty cool. All right. See ya.